we'll dive into Sam.
Well, I can ask a couple of questions because I don't know too much about Blue Bricks. Obviously, I've seen them on social media. So I just really wanted to start from the beginning, really. So basically leaving school, childhood through to how you got to here. So what was you doing prior to the magazine, really? You was an estate agent, wasn't you?
Yeah, I was. So I never went to university or anything like that. I jumped straight into an apprenticeship when I was 16 years old, basically. Um, and then from there, I jumped into the corporate world and learned very, very quickly. It just wasn't for me, and this just wasn't what I wanted to spend the rest of my life doing. You sort of around people that have been there 20, 30 years that are looking you in the eyes and going, make sure you leave, don't do what I did. It's very depressing sort of world. Yeah.
What was you doing in corporate?
I was doing originally, it was like debt recovery for a building society. Um, which was fucking really not fun at all, mate. I went against my morals, so I didn't manage long at that. And then I went into e-learning of all things. And I sort of, around about 18, I started realising, no, I want more from life. I want to do more. I watched a film, Wolf of Wall Street, for some reason, just massively inspired me to realise there's more out there. And then I started researching property. I went to the bloody one-day seminars and everything like everyone does. And I didn't pay any money, but I just went to them. I saw through the sort of hard sales. And then I thought, well, how do I get into property? And estate agency seemed like a logical step. So that's what I ended up doing, really. And then from estate agency, I ended up sourcing during lockdown.
Obviously, publishing's quite a jump. It's just interested to see your journey up to the point of which you decided to buy the magazine, really. Just get a bit of a update and bit of background about you, really.
Was an estate agent, lost my job during COVID, went into property sourcing. I'm giving the quick version, and was basically, ASA was property sourcing in COVID, because when COVID happened, in my head, it was a great idea to open a sourcing business, because it was like 3 weeks, we'll flatten the curve, and then we're all sorted. Obviously, that didn't happen. So ASA was trying to navigate that and grow a sourcing business in, COVID. Investors were uncertain, vendors were uncertain. I was approached by Blue Bricks magazine. I was connected with them, and they said, "Would you like to come and work for us? 25 hours a week. We'll give you, income." Which I was like, "Great! That means I've got guaranteed income every month while I grow my business. We'll connect you with investors, and you can come work from our office." Now, before that point, I'd never been around entrepreneurs or business owners or anything like that, so I was really excited to actually be around people I could learn from. And then when I started working from that office, I realised that Blue Bricks was part owned by a private equity firm who I was sharing the office with. And I kind of got integrated into that business, to be honest with you. I just became fascinated with their world, what they did, how they did it, was learning from the founder of that firm, became very close friends with him. So I was still growing Blue Bricks. I was still, and then I was working for the firm, helping them to buy businesses, analyse businesses that were suitable for acquisition, look at ways we could creatively buy those businesses. And then basically after a while of doing that, they turned around and said, "Look, we know that you're ambitious. We know you want to do what we're doing. So why don't you buy Blue Bricks magazine off us, and it can be like your first project, so to speak." And that's what happened. And the way that we bought Blue Bricks was through, I've never mentioned this public on a podcast because you guys like figures. I won't tell you how much I bought it for, just because I don't know if the owners want people to know, the past owners, but we bought it through deferred consideration. What that basically means is you pay the business off over a set period of time. It was about 2 years. I ended up paying it off early, but we paid it back through the cash flow off the business that I just bought. So technically, if you wanted to be a knobhead, you'd say a no money down deal. But we did that. But because of the deferred and the way that we paid the business off, there was a lot of debt within the business, which meant I had to come in and I had to do every single role other than the design, and it was still unprofitable. So it was about building it back from there.
So when you say you're doing everything, are you doing the interviews, the articles, all the editorial pieces, and then you're giving all that to someone to design the magazine layout? Is that was how it started?
I was back then. Now I've got a full-time marketer. I've got an editor. I've just replaced myself, so I do very little of the operations now. But back then, yeah, I'd go in, I'd interview people, I'd write the article. We didn't have ChatGPT 3 years ago, so you had to manually go through and make sure the commas were there and everything was spelt correctly, and then you'd send that to designer, and then it'd go to print. So it was very hard to grow the business in the early stages because you had no time to actually spend on the business. It was very in the business.
When ChatGPT came out, did you go, "Oh, that's useful, or did it take you a while to adopt it?
It took me a little while to realise just how good it was, and then eventually it was doing the job of a proofreader, so it instantly saved us a lot of money every month, which was and now with ChatGPT, we're looking at other ways we can actually implement not just ChatGPT but AI into the business, so that we can interview someone and then it will automatically create a piece of content from the interview without us even manually having to do anything. So it's revolutionary what it can do. It can then create a podcast using your voice from the magazine we've just created. So it's absolutely insane what AI is doing at the moment. Yeah.
That is so good. And I suppose doing the interviews at the start and taking the magazine, the sort of passion that was there to drive this forward was you actually then surrounding yourself with other property developers, entrepreneurs, people who are doing different things in property that you could actually get some time with to learn from them as well. Are you still actually doing the property stuff, or are you still as passionate about learning the different strategies and what people are doing all over the country?
Yeah, I love property. I'll always love property. Blue Bricks has been an all-consuming project, and the best piece of advice I ever got was laser focus. You know, focus on one thing and do it very, very well. I tried doing multiple things alongside Blue Bricks, and it was really hard. Now I've got Blue Bricks to a point that it's more systemized, automated. It's got staff it's running without me. Now I'm sort of spreading my wings and looking at other things that we can do. But Blue Bricks is sort of my first love, and property is a big one after that.
So who's the best interviewer you've done, or who's the one that's sort of giving you the most inspiration or funniest story that you've done so far?
Well, we've just interviewed Dee and Ryan, so I feel like I'm under a bit of pressure. Um,
You've done D
but
and Ryan, have you?
Exclude us. Exclude us.
It's
yeah,
me.
who's
It's
you
obviously
two?
it's obviously me. So we
Yeah, it's
can move
probably
Yeah,
on to the
D.
next
Probably
question.
D.
You need to do Stuart now, actually. Yeah.
yeah. Then we've got the full lot. The best one I've done, I've done a couple. Most inspirational was a guy called David Dowbus, Sheffield-based investor, built a multi-million pound property portfolio, and he was doing quite a few new build projects around there. He came to England with £300 to his name and didn't speak much English. And basically, his story is he just grafted. He just worked overtime jobs, worked weekends. He was packing boxes, really arduous job, and just saved up as much money as he could to buy one buy to let, and then did the same again and bought a second buy to let, and then eventually sort of steamrolled it from there with private finance and stuff. But I loved his story because it was very raw. There was no bullshit or luck. It was just hard work and commitment.
I mean, you must have you'd have seen a lot of different stories then and heard a lot of anecdotes. Would you say there's common themes or common trend lines for what makes people successful in property as an investor or as a developer?
Yeah, it's weird. 'Cause when I first started interviewing for people, Blue Bricks, you're like, wow, that's an amazing piece of advice. I'm going to write that down. And now, after 3 years of doing it, you do find that the advice from the top down is actually very, very similar. It actually becomes harder to write the articles if you've had the advice before. One of the biggest ones, which is quite an obvious one, have the right team around you. Um, Working with the right people that are capable, competent, that are going to work hard. That's a massive one. Systemization being another one, valuing your time, working on your business or your property business or your portfolio rather than working within it. You know, can you use if you're doing a rental strategy, not so much build to sell, use a property manager to save your time rather than saving 10% of your rental income. That's a really big one. And I think the other one is the other piece of advice I got was TFD, just fuck. Oh no, JFD wasn't it? Just fucking do it. Um, which is basically just crack on and just do it. I think you see a lot of people that are stuck in complacency, waiting for the right time. I don't think the right time exists. I think you sort of create the right time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate.